r/NoSleep. Our first story is by user not necessarily. My girlfriend got lost playing the hooded man game. I don't think I can get her back. Final. Check out part 1. Link in the description. The tall woman sat right next to me. I tried not to look at her like the rules stated, but I could see her in my peripheral vision. She was wearing a bright yellow raincoat that was stained with red drops. I looked outside, and sure enough, it was raining blood. The taxi got going again, and the woman next to me leaned close to my ear and spoke. "Are you looking for her?" The hooded man laughed, his creepy, chill-inducing laugh again. I started to feel extremely unsafe and nauseous. The cab started driving again, and it was all silent in the cab. The blood ran heavier and heavier until the windows were tinted red. The landscape grew more and more horrific. There was a large bridge next to the highway. Hooded figures dropped already hurt and mutilated people off the bridge. Under the bridge was a river of hot magma. The people that were dropped there literally melted in with the magma. Their skin turned into liquid and darkened until it was the same color as the magma. We passed the bridge and came across an even more horrific scene. People were being stitched up alive by hooded figures. Their arms and legs were swapped, and then they were left to run. We continued passing through these horrible scenes, but what came next will disturb me even more. It's hard to describe. You know how we move around in a 3D world and are 3D? These creatures were 4D. I was transfixed by their appearance when I suddenly heard a shrill scream. It was my own. I looked away and closed my mouth. My head started spinning, and I felt like I was about to faint. I closed my eyes for a moment. I woke up on the cold asphalt of the highway. My hazy mind started to clear. I saw the cab far in the distance. They had left me here. Maybe I shouldn't have talked to the hooded man. Maybe I should have been patient and waited until the cab stopped at least. Now I am here alone in this hellish world. The large red sun was setting in front of me. Soon it would be night. If daytime was bad here, night would be worse. I moved off the highway and started walking towards what looked like a small village in the distance. I had to get to shelter immediately. I walked and walked, but the lights of the village never grew closer. The large field I was walking on was endless, and it felt like I was on a loop. The sky grew more and more dark, but the village never got closer. I stopped myself and sat down in the middle of the field. I felt exposed and vulnerable, but there was nothing I could do. The village was just an illusion. I quickly turned back to get back to the highway. I ran and ran, but the highway never came close. Hopeless, I collapsed back on the field. The sky was now dark, and a blood-red moon shone in the sky. I had heard high-pitched, guttural moans around me. Vulture-like birds were encircling me high in the sky. I looked around and saw several dark figures emerging from either side. The air grew foggy and cold. Combined with the dark, I could barely see a meter in front of me. My blood ran cold as I heard the dragging sounds in either direction of me. I started running blindly. I tripped on an unknown object and fell hard on the ground. I felt a sharp, stinging pain in my abdomen. Instinctually, I put my hand there and felt a warm, sticky substance. It was blood. I felt around more and felt a hard rock embedded in my abdomen. I pulled hard on it until it came out. The relief was amazing as all the pressure was released. I lay there heaving for a bit, unable to move. I realized too late that I had made a mistake. Blood poured out of my wound like a waterfall, and my vision grew cloudy. I took off my shirt quickly and wrapped it around my abdomen. I started to get black spots in my vision, and I felt extremely dizzy. I hoped I hadn't lost too much blood. I didn't want to die here. Suddenly I felt a cold, icy grip on my shoulder. I turned around and came face to face with a horrible monster. It resembled the Grim Reaper. It was wearing a heavy dark hood and had a scythe in one hand. The metal of the scythe glinted in the moon and had dark red stains of blood on the blade. It had a disfigured and bloody face. To this day, its face is etched in my mind, and I start having a panic attack every time I remember it. Its mouth looked like it had molded together, like someone had burned it. The being picked me up and looked at me up and down. Soon more appeared from the fog. They started talking in a different language. Their voices were deep and heavy. They discussed for a while, before a hooded man appeared from the fog. The Grim Reaper-like creatures immediately backed off. I recognized the hooded man as the one from the taxi and cried in relief. "Leave him," the hooded man spoke in a flat voice. The creatures obeyed and disappeared in the fog. The hooded man came up to me and spoke. "Don't come back." Suddenly my head started spinning again and I fainted. I woke up in my house. The first thing I did was check my abdomen. In place of the wound I had was now a big red scar. I suddenly remember Manal and realized that I had not fulfilled my purpose. Don't try rituals like these for fun. The other world is not to be messed around with. It is a dark and scary place where we humans don't belong. Our next story is by user u/doodlefon, posted on r/creepyencounters. Strange men sat in my driveway and wouldn't get out despite wanting to speak to me. I live in my parents' home as I'm at the end of my senior year. This probably isn't as intense as other stories, but it certainly had me freaked out. The story happened about 4 days ago. My family lives on a farm, so we have a large amount of land, and we're straight off a state road with a horseshoe-shaped driveway. We had a dump trailer that sits in our yard, just because we don't have anywhere else to put it. Due to this whole self-quarantine thing, I'm home with my younger brother. I hear honking outside, and out the window I can just see a white vehicle, and I'm sitting there, and the vehicle is just honking as if they were waiting for someone to come out. This made me very uncomfortable. The fact someone decided to sit there and honk and didn't want to go and even look for fear of possibly being seen. But of course, younger siblings, being as they are, was quite oblivious to how creepy this actually was and decided to walk up to the door in plain sight of the strangers in the vehicle. Me, not feeling safe with just sitting there and letting my brother talk to strangers who were sitting in the driveway, finally got up to talk to them. I was very uncomfortable with it all. Not in a way that was, I don't want to get sick, and more of a, there's a stranger who is honking at my door. In some hindsight, you could say this might have been about the whole virus in some regards, but other factors do play in. There were 2 men in this white truck, and the one who spoke to me was in the passenger's seat. The driver seemed quite nervous. Every time I refused to give any information, he ended up starting the vehicle, and his friend had to keep insisting to keep talking, which led him in this cycle of turning his truck on and off again. The first thing I take note of is this guy has a very heavy accent, which I still can't pin. The best guesstimation I have is something European. He's asking about the dump trailer in my yard if it's for sale, which I say no, it is not. He asks if someone else is home that he could talk to. I didn't hear exactly who he wanted since his friend had turned the engine on again. My best guess is either a husband or my father. As he kept talking, tell him, have him call. Well, I'm not married, and my father was at work, so I said no, and if he really wanted to see someone, he'd have to come back at a later time. Then he insisted on giving his number, still refusing to leave the vehicle while I was saying no, there's no point in getting his number, the trailer isn't for sale, and anyone else in my household will echo the same exact thing. But he insists I get a paper or something to write down his number. He has me come close to write this number, where I noticed the next thing, his number. His area code was a Massachusetts number. We were in Pennsylvania. Now, he has me get close, right up to the window, which completely throws the whole distance thing out. They just didn't want to get out of the vehicle, which is what really made me uncomfortable. I was too afraid to go back into my house. I didn't truly want to irritate these people and turn my back by refusing. So, I just followed what they asked to get them the hell out of my driveway ASAP. I told my parents all this once they had gotten home, gave them the number, which they didn't call because it all seemed too suspicious. My dad decided to pull out a gun for me to keep nearby just in case someone broke in because of this encounter. As my father said when I told him why they said they stopped, if that trailer was for sale, there would be a for sale sign.